What is up, everybody? It's Mark from 403 Fauna, along with.
Jason Radass Designs.
Thank you for joining us again this week. This week's major topic will be on Patreon. So, what is Patreon? Patreon is a paid service where a provider provides content for you. And I was pretty surprised a couple of years ago when ball pythons started becoming popular on that platform. So, we'll be talking about that today. How many Patreons are you involved with, Jason?
One. I tried another one last year. Garrick DeMeyer of Royal Constrictor Designs. He used to be involved with crested geckos and lots of other critters, green tree pythons, different things. And I remember him from when I was in the hobby before. Pretty cool that he's stuck around. He's highly respected and knowledgeable and very experienced with ball pythons now that he's done that many years. And I just felt like showing some respect and uh, joining his Patreon. It was new. He started it. And I checked it out for, I don't know, maybe like 8 months or something like that.
Cool.
And
Well,
yeah, it was cool.
we'll save that for the rest of the day, but let's get started with our weekly check-in. How was your week
hmm
as far as ball pythons and life in general?
Um, I tried feeding frozen thawed from my freezer and thawed out some soft furs and some rats and fed the snakes thinking that after I went and bought some mice and fed a bunch of mice and I just really didn't I'm just not a huge fan. I don't like dislike it, but I'm not a huge fan of feeding frozen thawed. But I thought I'd give it a go because I had the stuff in stock and wasn't like frozen a long time and good meals. And I thought, well, maybe this is the perfect time for me to thaw a bunch of stuff out. And not really anticipating snakes eating a whole lot without, really much training. Um, from being in the hobby again the last 2 years, I have not fed very much frozen thawed meals, maybe a couple to snakes that were really hungry and knew would eat anything. And to my surprise, even though some snakes would not take it, or most of them interested, but like, that's not what I usually get. All the items that I thawed, I think it was like 16 soft furs and like a couple rats. Everything got eaten.
Nice.
So if I put it in one snake's face, like real careful, try to do the whole dance and wiggle it around. If they weren't interested, then I would just move on to another snake. So I was pleasantly surprised that that they all got eaten and not one meal got wasted. Because that's one of the things about frozen thawed is, unless you have a snake or a monitor lizard, or in my case, I have a pixie frog, an African bullfrog, and I have an adult Argentine horn frog, and they can eat pretty big meals. So that's sometimes my garbage disposal at the end. But that sometimes you waste value in an animal that was raised and then frozen and is worth money and is an item for something to have sustenance and that you never want to waste stuff. So it it worked out pretty well as far as last week with feeding snakes. And life, hey, life throws you curveballs sometimes, and you just have to like swing away. If you think it's gonna be a ball, just let it go. Um, there's ups and downs in the hobby and ups and downs in life, and it's all in how you react to it and learn from it. And so, yeah, a little bit of a rough week for me again, but all in all, I'm a happy, positive person. So I'm here today. Um, very grateful to be here.
I'm glad to hear. Just FYI, Jason came on like 30 seconds after 4 o'clock, so I was a little worried about him, especially a
I'm
bad week last week.
definitely gonna be here. Just cut it a little bit close.
Glad you're here.
Thank
Okay,
you.
so my week, I had a lot of locks this week, which is really
Mhm.
good. And I got a girl that looks like she's getting pretty close. So I'm excited about that. About frozen thawed, that's probably an entire show that we could do. But
Yeah, for sure.
I feed frozen thawed for your live. Do you feed live or pre-kill them? What do you do with that?
Every once in a while, I'll pre-kill something. Like for instance, if you're feeding large snakes and they eat really well, maybe you put a rat in a big display cage. Not everyone has that, but I have some display cages too that those snakes are comfortable enough in. And when you got a whole bunch of cork bark and you got a whole bunch of different like things that you set up, sometimes I've had like live plants in there, different things. That like a big giant rat will tear that apart and poop everywhere in your clean cage. So sometimes I've fed live rats that were very large to snakes that were on the larger side or just really robust eaters. And they would have an issue or they would be a little bit intimidated because the rat's a little feisty. And so sometimes you, well, like a term in the past would be like thumping. Some people are sensitive to that, but that's essentially what you do is knock the rodent right out quickly, swiftly in one move. I've gotten pretty good at it in the past, and you really want to break it down. We're not going to have a whole conversation about dispatching rodents, but like it's more humane really than how they are prepared to be frozen and vacuum sealed, in my opinion. Like I had like a gas chamber, like a CO2 kind of deal that I got from my cousin that she made and had researched and wanted to try to, like freeze some stuff, and she did. And it went fairly smooth, although her report, and I don't have a lot of experience with this, was that the rodents that you gas, even if you gas them real heavily, really quickly, it's not instant. And that is what is accepted as the hobby standard. Although in the past, what I've found is that most keepers of reptiles, maybe they don't want their snake to get bit or their lizard to get bit, or that they just prefer it that way pre-killed. They will, thump the rodent and it's pretty quick and pretty instant and you know humane essentially. So sometimes I will do that. Not very often is that necessary, but yeah. I think my biggest problem with frozen thawed is that if you're feeding something that's smaller, like a baby rat, it's not always like a clean, easy ordeal. Like sometimes stuff gets messy,
Mm-hmm.
and that's not preferred by some people. Like our cousin, she had 5 ball pythons. Oh, I'm not gonna feed live rodents. They're cute. I'm not gonna do that. I love these rodents and those rodents, and I understand that mentality. And she would feed frozen thawed, and it would go okay. But then eventually she started to have some messiness. uh, Hey, Brandon. It actually turned her off of frozen thawed, even though it was easier and more affordable at that time for her. And she's like, I'm never gonna do that again. That was so gross. She had a couple bad experiences where it was quite messy throughout the process, and yeah, I've just always enjoyed seeing an animal like hunt a little bit. It's the cycle of life, the circle of life, snakes and large lizards will eat rodents in the wild. They'll eat young birds in the wild. They'll eat. other lizards in the wild, and um, it's just part of it. And people try to feel better about it by giving them frozen thawed sometimes, and that's okay. I'm fine with that, but it makes sense. Um, the reason why I was thinking about trying it because I was considering getting out of breeding rodents for a while and seeing if I could switch everything just as like a tester run. And I didn't think it was going to go as smooth as it did, although some did refuse the rodent in their face. But yeah, I mean, if if you give it a try, it's not as hard as it seems. Maybe it was a little helpful that some of my snakes were extra hungry, and that they're all healthy and good eaters. But I'm checking it out. Gonna give it a try, and I'll still feed live too. I just prefer it. I think it's simpler. Um, on that note, I could elaborate just a tiny bit more if you like.
Let's save that for a future show on this topic because I got a lot to
Yeah,
say about it as well, and I'm sure you do too. So
yeah.
let's save that for another time.
All right, let's do that.
So let's move on here. I had a great week with pairings. I picked up another snake from Randy Dark Cloud Reptiles. He bought a snake
Hmm.
from me. I bought a snake from him, and it's a breeder female that I'm looking to add, ready to go right now. After a little bit of quarantine, I'll put her in the rotation. But
Hmm.
I'll share that in a future video.
Yeah, Randy's a great guy, and when I came and visited you, you recommended checking in with him, and I couldn't have nicer things to say about him. Just a class act, been in the hobby a long time, and uh, enjoyable to be around. He likes to share knowledge and help people, and it was really fun. Not just seeing him at a show, but getting to meet up with him and seeing his operation and brainstorming with him and chatting with him. He's a great guy.
Well, we got Courtney and Steven in the chat right now. They're gonna make sure
Yeah.
we don't talk smack about them later on, but I've got some good things to say about them. So
I would advise against that. Tread carefully. Courtney, I think, could probably take most people verbally online with her keyboard and also in person. It's all that D&D. You learn how to fight. So,
okay, today's shout out of the week is Quest the Rebel Gaming. This guy's a big supporter of both my Instagram and my
mhm.
YouTube, and he has his own YouTube as well, Quest the Rebel Gaming. If you're into GTA 5, check that out. He's got
Nice.
some video games videos to check out. He has an Instagram too, Quest underscore the Rebel, and as you can see there, that he does have some ball pythons as well. So be sure to check out Quest the Rebel. He's our shout out of the week because he won our problem of the week last week. Now,
Hmm.
just before we go into the problem of the week, every week we have a question, and the person who answers it correctly gets added into a drawing for a free snake at the end of the year. Now, it's going to be a banger snake, and on my part, I'm going to give the person who wins an option of the snake they want. Maybe they want to get into the monsoon project. They could win a het monsoon. Maybe they want a clown het hypo. Maybe they want some G stripe stuff. So I guarantee you it's going to be a great snake. And no matter who it is, they're going to want at least one of my snakes. And also, you have graciously decided to donate a
Hmm.
snake as well. And we'll figure out whether that will be
Nice.
added into the together or we'll do
What
a
if
one.
what if we did this? What if we did this, Mark? I just thought of this right as you're explaining it. Like, what if we did problem of the year? Or
Ooh.
almost a full year or whatnot, thereabouts, where all the people that won problem of the week like kind of compete, and there's a problem of the year. There's a separate winner for that, a winner of the winners.
Ooh, I'm gonna write this down right.
So that way two people most likely win. So that could be cool. Something we'll iron out and
I like
discuss
that
over
idea.
time. Yeah, I think it's a good idea. And then also, to anyone who was wondering why, like, didn't say anything about the giveaway of the Reptile Crew apparel items. I just I've been so busy in life, and I'm not gonna go into a weepy, sad story about it or make excuses, but it will take place at some point, and everyone will get free shipping and get some items. So it won't be hard to figure it out. I just right now have so much going on, Mark. I feel a little bit bad. I'm just glad that still here. So we'll get that all those things ironed out over time, and it'll all work out, just like life.
Before we get to problem of the week, there is a reptile show in our area this weekend in Orange County, and I know
What?
Gray's Reptiles will be vending. I'm thinking of going on Sunday. It depends on the weather because we're supposed to have a big storm hit this weekend.
Huge
So
storm. Huge
yeah,
storm supposed to hit you with tons of water.
if it's raining
Oh,
like crazy, I probably won't go, but I would like to go to it, but we'll see.
yeah, that's what they're reporting. Sometimes up in the mountains where I work, they will say, "Oh my God, a blizzard is coming, and there's gonna be yetis and all sorts of stuff. It's crazy." And then like the storm comes, and it's like a dusting of snow. But everyone seems pretty confident that from what the meteorologists are saying that this is gonna be a nice little size storm. So yeah,
Okay,
we'll just
see.
see.
All right, let's get to our problem of the week. Now, guests, feel free to shout out your answers. I know there's some people here who have already won, like Jen from High Vis Pythons, but you can help people out. First person who is not a previous winner will get the shout out for next week and be eligible for a drawing. So today's problem of the week, it's a little 403 fauna problem here. Which one of these Patreons has myself not been a part of? A, Always Evolving Pythons. B, Canova. C, Blue Line Morphs. Or D, Mutation Creation. So I've been a part of 3 of these. And which one have I not been a part of? Now, you mentioned before that you've been a part of Royal Constrictor Designs.
Yeah, I like
Did,
Garrick.
did you win any of his weekly? Was it
I
weekly?
did not. I
No.
did not. I joined like a day before there was gonna be a drawing, and I did not win any of them. I was in quite a few of them for a chance at it, and that's pretty cool. Um, but he gave away some really neat stuff. I mean, he has so much stuff, but really nice thing for him to do, and that was a possibility for me. I just didn't win, and that's okay.
Okay, so we do have a winner here, Samuel Oriana. So hit me up on Instagram just so I could check out. I could give you a shout out if I know your Instagram. We could add some pictures of that too, and I will also make you eligible for a drawing for a free snake. Let me write your name down right here. Trying to recognize if that's one of my students. I don't think so. You got to be
he
18, right?
he gets an A.
But yeah, so I have not been a part of Mutation Creations Patreon, which is probably a crime, but we're going to get into it. I have dropped the Patreon this past month and I'm looking for another one. So we'll get into that, whether that's Leviathan or Mutation Creation or someone else. We'll talk about that.
All right.
Okay, do
Good
you have
job.
your snake of the week?
I do have my snake of the week.
Okay, let's check it out.
Dun, 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 dun,
Oh,
dun, dun, dun,
you had it all ready to
dun.
go.
Dun, 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 dun,
Okay, so
dun.
Red Ass Snake of the Week. Every week, Jason shares one of his snakes. And let's try to guess what the morph is here. So, pretty light. I'm thinking maybe hypo. What do you guys think out there? Is there hypo in there? Pastel. It's got a nice dorsal stripe on it. Trying to think if you have red stripe. I don't know. Maybe.
I don't have any red stripe in my collection, although she is a little red stripey looking in a sense, but she's not red stripe.
Okay, so me and Jen think there's hypo in there. Can you confirm whether there's hypo in there or not?
There is hypo.
Is it a male or female?
It is a female. I got her a couple years ago at the Anaheim show, and she was a baby, but well started, really healthy little baby. I got a good price on her that was smaller than the price tag on her deli cup, and she's really healthy, and she's possible het two things.
So there's no other incomplete dominant genes in there?
She is also Enchi.
I was going to say Enchi because of the reduced
Yeah,
pattern.
just that blockiness. She is an Enchi hypo, 66% cryptic.
Ooh, got those thick eye bands, but Enchis do have thick eye bands.
Some people have looked at her that have experience on it and said, yeah, she's het. She's gonna prove cryptic, het cryptic. She's 66% also rainbow.
Ooh, very nice.
And she was a good eater. Right off the bat, she likes to have a hide. She she's a really good eater. I definitely could have power fed her. She's one of my better eaters and bred her by now, but I feed her more in spurts, and I don't really have an explanation as to why. She will tackle like 3 meals at a time, generally. Um, Usually she just gets one or two. But there's lots of times that she's gotten, like 3 adult mice or whatnot. But I just have like slow grown her. So she's gonna be like, I don't know, she should be 2 now. But I have snakes that are a little bit younger than her, that are bigger than her, and have been breeding for a while. I just like, I don't know how to explain it. I just have slow grown her, and every once in a while I'll feed her in spurts, like a little bit extra if she's feeling like it. And she's a good shedder, and she is really docile, and I just really like her a lot. I would say she's maybe almost like pretty much among my top favorite females, like top 5 favorite females that I have in the collection, even though, she has potential. She's just a simple snake, but she's just really cool. And I was gonna get more of the babies from that clutch. Her brother was a hypo Enchi rainbow and was at the show and was listed at that time 2 years ago for $10,000, because I don't think like Bob really wanted to sell her. From Bob Gunter of 818 Reptiles. He's a great guy, great vendor, really reasonable, fun to talk to and hang with. And I wanted to get some of her brothers and sisters, and he realized he had cryptic floating through the collection, and I think pretty much everything else like sold, and I didn't have a lot of investment. It was early on for me getting snakes, and I even though they're affordable siblings, it just didn't, the timing didn't work out. But I would have liked to have had, you know, her sister and maybe a brother. But yeah, rainbow is a cool gene. Not a ton has been done with it. It showed up in a collection later. Essentially, somebody, I can't remember the guy's name, but he's in America, I think on the East Coast. Really nice guy to talk to. He had some snakes, he sent them overseas. A guy bred them. The rainbow gene popped out of nowhere. Then he realized, oh, well, I must have this gene in my collection. Went back and with the mom and with other snakes, and then figured out over time by breeding back that he had rainbow. He essentially started it even though he didn't hatch the first one. And he's a really nice guy. He's been trying to work it into clown and other things. And he relayed to me that he's gonna probably retire in a few years. So he just wants to see the rainbow gene go through like clown and some different things, and then he'll likely walk away. But whether it becomes a really popular gene in the future or not remains to be seen. But some people really like it a lot. It seems to be a healthy gene, for the most part, unless you're really crossing it back to each other and line breeding it, inbreeding it really heavy. And when you breed hets, like everything goes fine. So there was a little bit of a rumor that, hey, why has no one seen like a rainbow on eggs? Um, but I don't think it's going to be a problem. That's the snake of the week.
Appreciate that. I think she'll definitely prove out for Het Cryptic, at least with that stripe and the reduced enchi, and good luck on
I
the
think,
rainbow part. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, we'll see. We'll see. That's her. I'm gonna go put her back in her room. I'll be gone for like 60 to 80 seconds. Bye, everyone. I'll be back.
I'll start the next segment here. So let's take a look at page one of Morph Market. Now, Morph Market auctions. I did my first auction last week, and the winner, he was all, he told me that he was going on vacation this week, and can I pay you next week? So I said, yeah, maybe this guy's on spring break, and hopefully he'll pay me for that snake, but I'll see if he does pay me for his winning. Otherwise, I'll have to report him to Morph Market. So if you're watching, pay your snake if you're back from your spring break vacation. But let's take a look real quick at page one of Morph Market auctions. Okay, there was a couple snakes here that I found very interesting. So this one in particular, the Trojan Enchi Clown. Now I do have Trojan in my collection. I have a female pastel blackhead Trojan that I would love to get a male Trojan for her. And this one popped up. Oh, so this jumped up to $605. It was at like a little over 300, but it looks like it's going to go for a decent price. I was going to bid it up to 500, but it's already past my limit here. So someone's going to get a good snake here. Beautiful Trojan Enchi Clown from, I think it's Limey Smidger or Sterling Nelson. So good luck on that, whoever's bidding on it right now. Have you put up anything on auction recently?
I have not. I thought about it. I thought about it, but I've had so much going on. I still actually have one snake that I need to ship out. That was an auction, and the guy's been super patient. That there was a lot of cold involved. There was a lot of he can't pick up on Thursdays, and I can usually ship on Tuesdays, but lately money's been so tight and things have been going on in my life, and we just haven't synced up with the time there. So I'll figure out some kind of way to make him extra happy, and I really like the snake that he's gonna get. So we'll make it work. And I'm gonna have to thin, I think, a couple projects and hustle up some money and post some like small groups of stuff. And so I've been thinking about that. And I almost showed a snake today that was not a ball python that I was thinking about putting in the auction and that I'd show people here, and maybe it would get a little bit more attention. And maybe I'll do that next week for the show. But yeah, maybe next week I'll put a few things up, and the weather is better. I mean, other than the storm coming this weekend. We're pretty close to a normal spring. Not far from it.
Last word here on the Morph Market auctions. Take a look at the numbers of snakes being auctioned right now. It's at 125. Tomorrow's the
Mhm.
start of the new month, and I guarantee you that's going to bump up to like 400 as people get their auctions ready to go again.
That's true.
Okay, so we've got a new segment this week, and it's called In the News, where we'll just really quickly put up some topics and just comment on them real fast before we get on to our subject this week. But last
Mhm.
week we talked about the extremists and mace. Just a quick wrap up on that. So
Mhm.
after that video was put up, the the backlash on it was pretty savage, and
Was it?
Justin quickly changed the title of the video. I remember, or it said like New Gene Mace, and then he changed it to Extremist now. Um, Ken Masick came out and did not endorse the name change. So it's going to stay Extremist while Brittany Gobble calls it the Mace in her collection. So,
Yeah, I've gotten a snake from her before, and he's really cool. And I haven't chatted with her a lot though. Or Ken Masick, but it seemed I did see, even though I haven't completely had my thumb on the pulse of the hobby like I typically do the last couple weeks, I did see that there was a conversation between Ken Masick and Justin where he was saying, "Yeah, no, I wasn't trying to rename it," and I'm a little surprised that they went ahead with such a public and video of like, not that there's anything wrong with it, but like I assumed with that sort of content and reveal that that meant that the three of them were attempting to rename the gene to avoid confusion and stuff. And I actually like the name of it, Mace. I think that's more extreme. Like I like that better. But even though it fits, I guess that wasn't pre-talked about or discussed. It was just a cutesy name and a good one at that. And they discussed it and sorted all that out. Yeah, I think that's interesting. And I like the new name, but whatever, like it's fine. It's still a gene. It's still out there. It still does cool stuff, and people will be working with it. And I heard some people saying that it's really expensive now. Um, give it time, and it'll go back to where it was, I'm sure.
okay, today though on YouTube there was a battle between Reptiles for Century and Canova on
Hmm.
Monarch versus Ultramel. Reptiles for Century showed some amazing Ultramel clown combos, and then Justin just dropped his endorsement as being Team Monarch. So Justin is officially on your team, Team Monarch. And I gotta say, man, the stuff that he showed was just it convinced me. I wish I had Monarch in my collection.
Give it time. I mean, the monarch that I got, because you never know. It's a perfect example of you can have a really healthy, decent sized collection and snakes that are just primed to breed as far as age and size. And even though this ball python hobby, area of the hobby has become so easy looking to people compared to 15, 20, 25 years ago, where it was thought to be very difficult to breed them. Um, they don't always go according to plan. It's not like a set, thing. Sometimes people raise ball pythons and they do a really good job of it, and there will be one that, for no known reason, never breeds or doesn't breed until it's 6, 7, 8, 9 years old. I got a snake last year from a family, and that snake was in that collection since 2017. I paired her up at the end of last year and a little bit into this year, and she hasn't really eaten well for me. she doesn't seem to be losing any weight, that's for sure. Whether she is going to lay eggs or not, I don't know. But I have a monarch female that's gigantic that I bought as a super crazy, chubby, well-started adult. And she had been paired last January, not this one, but last year. And that lady moved and she reabsorbed her follicles. And I've been pairing her since last last fall on and off. And she's so huge and I don't have an ultrasound. I couldn't really tell you for sure. I've tried to palpate her and it feels like I feel follicles, but sometimes you gotta be patient and you never know. But if I hatch monarchs, we'll get one in your hands, a nice female to raise up, and I just think it's a beautiful standalone gene. And I have a pastel ultra male female that I've been pairing for a while now too, and she's super pretty and super cool. They both the genes do fun stuff and are really neat looking. I just lean towards monarch. I think with no pastel and with no other genes, I think it's I don't know. To me, it's pretty obvious that it's a better looking snake. Like to me, it's the prettiest of ball pythons standalone, just as it is. Like some people, maybe they would say exanthic or hypo or desert ghost or something. But for me, from when I first saw it, that I was like, oh, that's like burgundy snake, and they're variable, just like ultramales are variable. But if you take a regular ultramale baby and a regular ultramale adult, and you take a regular monarch baby and a regular monarch adult, like I think the monarchs look better. And if I could only have one snake that displayed one gene, aside from like a bell, which I love so much, they're simple and boring to people, but I love them. Um, monarch would be the one, and so that's why I bought that very expensive snake.
No arguments for me. Let's move on to the next one here. Now, you've been on Antoine's show and talking about Monarch versus Ultramel, but last
Hmm.
week's or this week's show, he had cut or no cut. And by the way, fantastic show Antoine from High Desert Pythons puts on. Be sure to check it out every Tuesday. I know it goes up against Adam's show, which is unfortunate, but
Yeah,
we can always watch one and watch one later.
yeah.
But what are your thoughts on this? Are you a cut or no cut?
Yeah, I tried to get on that show too. And I was on the last one, so that's probably, want to hear from different people. Antoine's such a great guy. And there's an acceptance in this hobby because ball pythons are such tanks of healthy specimens and species that they can handle their eggs getting cut early, and they can handle their eggs being damaged and leaking and being patched up, pretty well. Just throw some Flex Seal on there like a commercial, and you're good. But yeah, people like to cut, and their viewpoint is more so that they're gonna save a snake by there being a problem inside the egg, and they can alleviate that and rectify that situation in a snake that otherwise most likely would have died from the umbilical cord or from lacking an egg tooth, um, or just being a tiny bit weak. Um, and I understand that. I understand that in this day of crossing so many genes and wanting healthy offspring. But in the wild, it's survival of the fittest. And the reason why some snakes lay so many eggs is because they're just not all going to make it. And definitely not all the babies are going to make it. And when you hatch snakes, they don't all make it. You experienced that this year. Every big breeder that has, a handful of clutches, at least to many dozens or more, are going to likely have some snakes that just have a failure to thrive because they were never really meant to hatch. I used to breed chameleons, different kinds of chameleons, and I had some very rare chameleons and I had some very common chameleons. And when you are when you're incubating eggs from chameleons, they're not like geckos or pythons or colubrids where a couple months, 50 to 70 days or anything in that kind of time frame. Like they take 5.5, depending on the species, to like up to like I had panther chameleons once hatch at 9 months. And yeah, sometimes the eggs go through little diapauses. Things aren't just right, or temperatures and whatnot, and they just like they press the pause button. And there's chameleons in Madagascar that take much longer than 9 months to hatch. You can look into it. It's crazy. But um sometimes with so many clutches of chameleons that took so long, I'd be like, what's going on inside, Mark? What's going on? Is anything happening? And I would cut an egg, and then there would be like a mostly developed chameleon, or like even like an essentially almost looking like hatchable chameleon. And I'd just feel so bad because it would be alive. And I'd be like, oh man, there's no hope after that. But I gained some experience. And I feel like ball pythons are hardier than that, they stand a chance to still hatch. But I lean towards actually the side of, if a reptile is meant to hatch in your care from animals that you raised and you did everything that you could to support, healthy breeding, it's gonna hatch on its own. And if it doesn't, it most of the time wasn't meant to. Now, sometimes can that be bad luck? Sure. I happened to be born, like choking a little bit at birth. And then they rectified that right away. Maybe that's why I'm so quirky, Mark. Maybe I wasn't supposed to be alive and meant to hatch. But that's kind of how I feel, is that through evolution, if the parameters are within certain fair ranges, like everything's gonna hatch like, like normal. And you could debate all you want whether, you should cut or not cut. My view is that it's exciting to cut. I love watching egg cutting videos and looking inside and seeing how some are really yolky and super moist, and they got all sorts of fluids, and the other ones are like dry and like almost like mucusy, and like there's doesn't seem very hydrated in there, and like, wow, some have like yolk still attached, and it can be all throughout the time frames of like 54 to 60 days, although people don't usually wait 60 days. Um, but if you incubate at a lower temperature, they'll take over that. And so when I hatched my second clutch, but my first self-paired clutch last year, I just left them in a clump and I surrounded them with New Zealand moss that was moistened really good, but wrung out really good. And I kind of nestled them in there, just like supported by the moss. And I tried to keep the moss away from like the boundaries, like from touching the edges of the Tupperware container that they were in. Maybe they touch a little bit, but I didn't want that to be like a wick of moisture to the eggs. But I thought that created a great humid environment, and they were nice and snug, and they hatched over the course of 48 hours and started at 58 days, and everything was fine. And I could repeat that price process like year after year after year with snakes, and eventually I'd have some that didn't hatch right. That's just bound to happen sometimes when you're mixing up genetics. Uh, but I think it's more rewarding to watch a reptile hatch than to slice open an egg. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. I just think there's pros and cons, and I enjoy watching egg cutting videos and learning from it and seeing the excitement, especially the ones where people document it over time and then they show, oh, okay, here's the snakes out of the egg. Next week, oh, here's the snakes after they shed, and here's the snakes after they ate and shed again. That's like a pretty cool thing to put together that way and be patient. And then like the viewers getting to see like things play out in one video. And that's pretty cool when people do that. I just think that people will find if they always cut eggs, because that's what other people do, that if they wait and are patient and just do the best that they can to support the eggs hatching, they'll have a really nice, rewarding experience that is cooler than they thought.
Well, as for me personally, I'm a cutter, and I'm not going to try to sugarcoat it and say I'm trying to save a baby from being strangled. It's
Hmm.
straight up impatience on my part. It's straight up I
Hmm.
want to see what the heck's in there.
And that's okay. That's totally okay. And I imagine it's super, super fun.
And also,
Um,
and people might hate this, but I do it for YouTube content because
hmm.
I personally don't like watching egg cutting videos unless they're videos which are edited where they show the baby out of the eggs. I don't do
Hmm.
that because it gives me more YouTube content. But that's also a selfish thing on my part. But my first year, I let them all go out on their own, and you're right, it's a completely rewarding experience, and you could see the stages of them like cutting the egg with their egg tooth and poking their head out, and that's
Hmm.
a really amazing experience. But I'm a cutter now.
I had some of the hatchlings, like some of the bells that were just like they would just like slash, slash, slash like little ninjas, and I was like, whoa, they're just going at it like Jack the Ripper, like pretty cool. And sometimes if you time it just right and you peek in at just the right time, you'll see the egg move and get slashed and a little bit of like embryonic fluid just barely seep out. And it's pretty cool.
Okay, last topic in the news, and I don't know if you heard this, but oh wait, ARS is going to be at Anaheim again this year.
Yeah, I knew that.
I think I might be picking up a rack.
a,
I,
a rodent rack?
no, I'm going to go with a snake rack. Um, I'm weighing my options right now because I really need a clown hat DG male because I've got several females that are going to be ready next year, and so spend the money on a DG clown, buy a rack. Those are my
Hmm.
I'm weighing right now.
Yeah, we'll have
You
to
pick up that rodent
talk
rack?
a, we'll have to talk about that a little and see what the right move is. A lot of people say, infrastructure and like equipment first is setting like groundwork for being ready to expand and to enjoy stuff. And you've wanted a nice big rack, like a freedom breeder or an ARS for a long time now, and you've been patient about it. You could have bought one, and you've waited for the right time, and maybe this summer is the right time for you. And I think you'll really enjoy it. And if you pick up an ARS rack that's already assembled, and all you got to do is transport it from the show to San Diego, that's gonna save you a lot of frustration and work in putting it together, because from what I can tell, putting together an ARS snake rack is frustrating and harder than putting together a freedom breeder rack. And I wouldn't really look forward to it. The rack I got was 1.2 miles away from me, and it just freedom breeders just they just pull apart. and just threw it in the back of the truck and drove it over here and put it right back together, and boom, it's done. I cleaned meticulously each piece and sanitized and shined it up and everything along the way, and put it together over the course of a couple days when it could have just, boom, stack, boom, 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 boom. But I wanted to sanitize it. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see. That the guy that owns the company is so nice, and I just missed out on getting an ARS rodent rack last summer, and I just sat there and stared at it for, maybe it wasn't a half an hour, maybe that's exaggerating, but like it felt like that long. I just stared and drooled, and I wanted it so bad, and my loan didn't come through, and I didn't get it because I didn't get the money till 2 days after the show. I was so disappointed. I thought I had everything lined up perfect, all my ducks in a row, but it just wasn't meant to be, and that's fine.
Okay, so let's get to our big topic of the day. I know some people have been waiting for this. Our thoughts on Patreon. Now,
Mm-hmm.
let me say here, I am not thinking of starting a Patreon, but I do also want to mention that when people start a Patreon and then you start seeing like other breeders make reels on Instagram about how these inexperienced breeders are starting Patreons, I don't think that's cool. I mean, if starting a Patreon is up to the individual, and if they want to start it, they can start it. Doesn't matter whether you are a beginner or whether you have 10 years of experience. As long as you provide content for your patrons, then hey, go for it.
Yeah.
So we know that you are a part of a Patreon right now, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you want to talk about Adam's Patreon and maybe sell me on it? I've been looking into getting
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I can do that. Um, I well, hold on. I'm curious what Aaron wrote right there. My eyesight's a little off today. Hmm.
I'll read it out. It says Freedom Breeder and ARS are both amazing racks. I have both, and Freedom Breeder is nicer, but shipping is so much cheaper for ARS. Also, they are better to deal with on customer service.
Yeah, they have great, stellar customer service. Like, even when I couldn't afford that rodent rack that day, but I was trying to figure something out with him, because it would have saved me like approximately $725 shipping to get that rack at that show and transport it home. And he's like, well, maybe you can talk to Rami, the show promoter. He's picking up 2 racks, and maybe he will be willing to take this one with him. He's taking it to this like storage building, and then you could go and pick it up in a couple days when you have the money. And I was like, oh man, do I have to like be yeah, be in Rami's pocket, like he may have done that for me. I'm very persuasive, but I just felt like it just wasn't meant to be, and that's fine. But he was willing to discuss lowering the shipping charge for me if I paid in full when I got the money together, which was shortly thereafter. And I didn't bug him about that. The thing is that people don't realize, and I'm sure this applies to Freedom Breeder as well, but in the case that I happen to be aware of from word of an honest businessman, that they really don't make a lot of money off of these racks, Mark. They really, really don't. The materials and paying employees and having a location and rent and materials and dealing with phone calls, and when they travel to a show, it's a big traveling experience to for them to go to Anaheim, for instance, and the money and the time to bring some employees to help, the time that they're not at their facility in their hometown, to like field other troubleshooting and customer service and other sales, like they lose essentially by bringing these racks to the show. And as long as they sell all the racks, like it's it works out. They essentially break even, but um yeah, they don't make a ton off of them, and he was still willing to like work with me a little bit because he knew how bad that I wanted one. And I couldn't say any nicer things from that amount of experience interacting with that company. And where Patreon. Okay, yeah. Proper Royals. Adam's Patreon. Adam Shira. He's a great guy, very charismatic, very easygoing, down to earth, and very transparent. I respect people in all areas of life that they're just themselves, and I feel like going on to YouTube and starting like your own, like essentially brand, your own level of like steady entertainment is not something that everyone's willing to do. I'm very outgoing in public, and it's really natural and easy for me to interact with people and try to talk and communicate and figure out how I can help them. And not everybody is like that. Some people are super shy, some people are insecure, some people are just not very tech savvy. So, like, and not everyone, Mark, is super interesting. There's like millions of professional comedians in the world. And I don't find all of them funny. I don't find all of them interesting. Some of them I just listen to one joke and click. That's not for me. And some people just don't deliver a punchline very well. Content is I don't want to say it's everything, but it's everything. It's really important to entertain, like what's his name in Gladiator, right? In the arena. Are you not entertained? Russell Crowe, right? They're coming out with Gladiator 2 soon as well. But I think a Patreon really has different elements of what it can offer. It can offer insight, it can offer knowledge, can offer entertainment, it can offer friendship, it can it can offer like business opportunities and alignments. There's a lot there. And I haven't checked out tons and tons of Patreons, but from what I can tell, I felt like the person I connected the most with in the reptile hobby with their YouTube content, and I wanted to get to know them better and interact with them, was Adam. And he's a super nice guy. We were supposed to actually get together this morning, and there was there was a little bit of confusion. I had a lot of errands to run. Things have been crazy, like I said. I haven't really given much details on, but things have been crazy in my life lately, and I just wanted to talk to Adam about the hobby and about some business and just hang out as well. And well, I thought it was 11 Pacific Standard Time on the West Coast, right? For us in California, and he's in Minnesota. He's 2 hours ahead of us. He thought that that was 11 his time. I'm not sure where the miscommunication lied, but that occurred, and it was no biggie for both of us. I was like, oh, I'll just rush and take a shower, make a cup of coffee, and I'll just be a little bit late and we'll do it. And he's like, no, I want to like spend quality like time. Don't want us to rush. We'll just do it in a few days. So we set up another time. But in my tier in his Patreon, I get a little bit more attention. I probably could have bugged him more about it and been like, hey, you have to come hang out with me now. But I've just been really easygoing about it, and gotten to know Adam better. And that's all I really wanted from my $107.50 a month is what it comes out to me, because for some reason it like taxes me. He does everything on the up and up and above board, and for some reason Patreon tax on $7.50 if I remember correctly what it is, and so that comes out of my account each month in the middle of the month, and it's worth it to me because it just turns into snake credit. So he spends all this extra time with me and values me as someone who's going to support his brand, and I still make out in the end anyways. I'm still going to buy a snake from him anyways eventually. So it's a pretty fair return on the investment of support. And I appreciate being able to interact with him more intimately, more directly, and I just want him to do good things. I feel that he's a really good person, and and like I said, Garrick DeMeyer, I have a lot of respect for someone who stayed in the hobby for like basically 30 years. He's had reptiles. Um, his didn't cost as much. His was $20. And for the people that pay $40, and there was no tax on those fees for some reason, um, they would be in another drawing randomized for someone to get an all expenses paid trip to Wisconsin and facility tour and hotel stay and probably a really super good deal on a snake too. And I didn't really want to. You're not likely to win that. I mean, you could. I've won randomizers before that were like 1,200 plus people, 1,300, 1,400 people, and like maybe like three spots for like an item in a separate hobby. And I was like one of those three people. It's a pretty cool feeling. But yeah, I just was more being supportive and showing respect. And I really didn't find Garrick's Patreon to be, which was brand new. He had just started it a little, like, I don't know, a month and a half before like I joined. I was just wanting to be supportive. I didn't find it to be as interactive as I would have liked. There was like no chat room. There wasn't a lot of like interacting between the whole Patreon with each other, as far as I'm aware. I wasn't invited to any like Instagram chat or anything. But he did share a lot of private videos and content, and you would get like a heads up on when there would be sales, and you would get like first dibs kind of a thing. And I didn't take advantage of those sales, but some of those sales were pretty good. Like half off snakes, but not like in a Mike Wilbanks way, like in a like, well, whatever I got on here, like you're gonna get a super good deal. And that's cool. Um, but I eventually left that. I think I showed enough respect and support, and I wanted to hang out with Adam. So I chose that. And I've had fun. I've had fun. I gave away a snake in the Patreon. That was a little bit bitey, but had, cost me like $675 initially, and then all the feeding, raising her up. I just didn't need that snake. I didn't want to tame that snake, and I wanted to do something nice. So, things like that do occur in his Patreon. He offers other things and help. Like he will help people like in a business way with like bringing on like someone like a tax guy to give like pointers on how to start a business and how to do your taxes more efficiently as it incorporates like hobby expenses. And some people have gotten a lot out of that. um, I haven't really paid close attention to that. That's not really, especially what I was like looking for right at this time. But he's given me advice and encouragement um, in the hobby space, in the sense of like pairings, in the sense of how do you deal with people, in the sense of like organization and keeping track of things, and just other down to earth, easygoing life type stuff. and I valued it very much, and it's worth more than money. And I got a snake. He sent me a snake, and I really like it. And it's really healthy, and I get a lot out of his Patreon. I've noticed, Mark, there's some other Patreons that I'm somewhat interested too. I know that you've been in some like really big ones, with big name people that have huge crowds of people that you can then benefit from all networking with. And you can't put a price on that either. But I find that Adam has like a separate Instagram chat for just the Patreons, all the Patreon members of all the tiers, and we all hang out and we joke around and we chat and we bounce ideas and we share like hey, this is going on. Hey, this person's got a good deal on something. Hey, does anybody want this snake? Hey, can anybody use this breeder male? Hey, can look that like somebody in the Patreon showed me that Steve's Morphs was had a list of snakes that he was selling, like breeder females mostly, that were like crazy good prices. And I ended up buying one of those snakes. I made payments on it, and it's actually finally going to show up in like a week or so. And it's like a highway female. So she's been paid off a long time, and he's been feeding her and, and super like understanding about me having some delays of accepting her in the sense of like weather and just timing stuff. But like that's pretty cool. Those are some of the benefits that you'll get. People giving you the heads up, people coordinating and networking. It's valuable. It's hard for me to speak on, Mark. You can like chime in more your experiences and other larger Patreons where they're like bigger, and what benefits you got out of that. Some of the other Patreons, I suppose, that I would be interested in would be like Antoine's, if I believe he has one.
Mhm.
And Miguel, always evolving pythons, like that would be a pretty cool one to be in. You'd actually be more likely to get his attention and talk to him and whatnot. He has so much that he could share, and charismatic, fun, interesting guy to talk to. And sure, yeah, Billy Rose, Mutation Creation, his Patreon is pretty expensive, and that doesn't really fit for me. And he has shows and podcasts where I can gain knowledge anyways, and he's so helpful to people that I guess that would be one that if I was in a different financial setting and money was no option, like I probably, me and him would probably vibe really well with all the tattoos and wackiness. But yeah, no, it's every Patreon serves its own like purpose and offers its own unique niche. So if you want to spend big money on ball pythons and other similar, reptiles, joining one of those bigger name Patreons where you're going to spend more money, it's almost like more, you get out what you put into it. So if you're going to invest more into your hobby, learning, some people, that not everyone has the same level of experience, right? So you can skip a lot of chapters in the reptile experience book by surrounding yourself and interacting with people that have far more experience than you. And so I could see that being the move for people that money is not really a problem. It's not as tight. Whereas there's some people that just want a fun place to hang out and learn a little bit and have good company and have it be smaller and more inclusive rather than there's 100+ people, and so it's hard to get heard or chime in, um, for somebody a little bit more mild mannered, perhaps. Yeah. What are
Yeah.
some of your thoughts? Because I could just rant, rant, rant. So like you were in Will's Patreon. Tell me about that. He seems like a pretty interesting guy.
See, just to keep my thoughts organized, I put it all in this PowerPoint here. So you kind of
Go for it.
went
Go
through the
for it.
stuff that I'm gonna go through. So you got your part in. Let's get
Yeah.
your part in here. But um, you mentioned the community aspect of it. I think that's a big
Hmm.
part of Patreons is if it makes you feel like you're part of a community. Some of the Patreons I've been on have not had that, but others have.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
cool thing about Patreon is you can try it for a month and see if it's for you, and if it's not, move on to the next one.
Yeah.
So here's the Patreons that I have been a part of. Number one, AEP, Always Evolving Python. I remember when he announced his Patreon, he announced it along with Justin. And at that time, I was like, oh man, if I put $25 in AEP and $25 in Canova, I'm gonna get this no problem. And you know what? Starting here with Miguel, he hit the ground running. His Patreon was awesome. He had a tax guy on, and going back to Adam a little bit, he's such a nice guy. He actually sent me the link to watch the video on his tax guy that he had on his Patreon for free. So Adam's an
What?
awesome guy.
Yeah,
But
he is. He likes you.
Miguel, he also did that, and he was putting out content regularly, and every dollar you put in goes into a snake that you want. And of course, he has some crazy snakes that you can buy.
Yeah.
But over time, he just started getting more and more distant from it. And I know that was at the time where he started doing the Mexico thing and putting all his time in that. And
Hmm.
so all of the things that I joined for Miguel's, I lost over time, and he stopped posting content. He only posted sales on his snakes. And if you want to have it as a bank to put money towards Miguel snakes, go for it.
Hmm.
Join
Yeah.
AEP. If you're looking for anything else, it's not going to be there because he's just too busy to start posting stuff. So
Well,
that's my
on that note, like, did you get a snake from him at a discount? Like, did you pick something up with were you in the Patreon that long enough where you had
I was
accrued some funds?
I was in it for a year, and I guess I could have put towards something, but his snakes are all like $10,000 at the time, and that was just even still with a what like $500 discount. That was just still out of my price range. So I gave him a tip. That was his tip for it, and no worries with that.
All
But
right.
at the same time, I also joined Canovas because they came out at the same time. And I joined at the $25 tier for Canova. By the way, back to AAP real quick. He started with only one tier, 25. And then later
Hmm.
on, he introduced the $100 tier, which I thought was a little unfair because, he advertised it as only one tier, and then he put in another one. So that was, I don't know, a little unfair to us who were loyal at the $25 tier. But Canova, he had different tiers to start. And I started at the $25 tier because I thought that's a great value. I'm going to get a lot of content for $25. But unfortunately, all I really got was my name on his videos at the end, where pretty much nobody. I hit the back button whenever that comes up because I know that's the end of the video.
Yeah, I've never seen your name on there, although I've seen it scrolls.
Yeah, the first
Eh,
this time he had his Patreon, I was on there for a few months, but you get that at the $25 tier, and you got egg cuttings, which for people like you who love egg cuttings is great, but for people
Mhm.
like me who egg cuttings are not my thing because you really can't see anything in there. Of course, with people like Justin and people like Billy, they have amazing stuff. Billy's monsoon egg cutting is still something I go back to every couple of months just to watch that again. But
Well, he's got those big old scissors too.
but I didn't think that Justin's at the $25 tier offered enough for me, and I got out of that. Now, if you join his higher tiers, the $50 and the $100 tiers, then you start getting access to personal videos and market talk and stuff like that. So I think at $50 a month, you get good value with Canova. But then again, that's $50 a month. That's, to me, that's a lot of money. But so I dropped both of theirs and I joined. Actually, let's go to number 4. I joined Royal Canadian Reptiles, Wills.
Mhm.
Beast Morphs, Aaron, I saw you mention that you should join RCRs, and you should join RCRs definitely, because he's got a really good community on there that just like names anyone will recognize are all there. And he's got a really good Discord chat going on. And I've had questions and they're immediately answered by Will or other people on there. So, really good community with RCR. It's one tier, $25. And there's a lot of content on there. He has Zoom calls, he has interviews, podcasts like interviews with people from the industry. He shows crazy snakes. One of the big things about being part of a Patreon is follow someone whose snakes you are in tune with, whose snakes that you have in your collection as well. Because Will works with Puzzle and Monsoon and stuff like that, which is stuff that I'm big into. And just seeing some of the crazy stuff he pulls out of the racks is just amazing. So I recommend Will to anyone starting out. 25, it's only $25 and you get a lot of content, get a good community. So check out RCR. I've been a part of his for going on 2 years probably already, and I plan to continue staying on there. And also, any money you invest in his also goes into a snake. So $25 a month, 2 years. I might be getting a snake from Will pretty soon.
Yeah, he ships to the United States, and he has a good reputation, and he's put a lot of effort and a lot of patience into the hobby from his end, and he's reaping the rewards of that during the boom that we've talked about. And I've heard good things about his Patreon, so it's right in line with that. That would be one that if I was looking at joining a new one, that would be one of the top ones I would probably consider doing so. Um, but yeah, then next you got Blue Line Morphs.
Yeah, Blue Line Baker.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. I strictly joined his because he offers a discount with Gray Rider Reptiles, a pretty healthy discount for shed tests. And he initially did have a lot of content as on there as well. I like watching his videos on YouTube, but going back to being in tune with their collection, he has a lot of pied stuff, and I'm not really into pieds. So um, as far as his videos, I didn't have much interest in them because it was very pied heavy. But he does offer the Gray Rider Reptiles discount, which is really good. So that was mainly what I went there for. But just as of yesterday, I did cut off. I'm no longer a part of that Patreon, and I'm actually looking for another Patreon to join. I got $25 to spend, so we're
Yeah.
looking
Did
to.
did you take the same scissors that you cut eggs with to cut your ties with the Patreon?
It's
I
funny
think
about. Oh no, go ahead.
I, I think Baker is an interesting character, and he's starting to do shows. He's an East Coast guy with that kind of like machismo kind of, I'm a police officer, I got a lot of energy kind of a thing. And he's almost just like a little bit of a big kid considering he's in such a profession. He's fun. I find him to be slightly annoying, and that'll seem like a diss, but like when I started watching his videos, I was like, this guy's a cop, and I've fought the cops before, and the law won, and like I just think that he just talks and talks and talks and talks, which is ironic that I'm such a talker, and I found that annoying, but like I found that also over time that I enjoyed his content. I don't watch every single one of his videos. I'm not in his Patreon. I've never bought a snake from him. But I like the guy. I like the guy, and he's surrounded himself with some successful people, and he's really having fun in the hobby, and maybe his direction with the genes and with the snakes that he's pairing, and and whatnot isn't totally line up with what I'm interested in. He has hatched some snakes that I have been interested in, and I think he's made some unique stuff. And I think that he's shared a lot of his ups and downs in the hobby with his YouTube viewers. And he kind of like won my attention over a little bit. You know, he's got the smooth polish, like you know, like logo and like intro, and you know, I find him to be a bit funny, and I hope that he does well in the hobby. I do. He is doing pretty well. He's not burning out, although he'll share with you some of the things that wear on him, where sometimes he doesn't have enough time, or sometimes he has to back off of the content, and he apologizes. And you know, he's a busy guy in a busy field, um, and I feel like he's doing a good job. There's not really anything bad that I can say from his content. And you know, I suppose he would be somebody I would be interested in joining the Patreon to some degree, and would like to mix it up and chat with. But I am not in the market to share another $100 or another $25 or anything like that. But I think that that would be one that I would be interested in. At least for a little while to see, because like you said in the beginning, you could just join a Patreon, mingle with some people, see how you vibe with them, learn what you can learn, interact, and maybe make a friend or two, and you don't have to stay. You know, there's no obligation. And it also shows a little bit of support too. So it goes both ways, and there's no harm in checking it out if you have a little bit of extra money and you wanna meet some new people. Um, so yeah.
Definitely. Again, the good thing about Patreon, just like you mentioned, like I mentioned before, is you could give it a try, and if it's not for you, you could move on to another one if you feel like you want to do that. So, for anyone who has not joined a Patreon or is starting a Patreon or whatever, these are the things that I look for when joining a Patreon. And I'm in the market, guys. Adam, try to sell me here, Leviathan. But number one is regular content, and like I mentioned, Miguel, no content, but if you want to put money towards a snake, hey. One thing about Will is that he does have good content, and he'll just like go into his snake room and just start opening tubs for 12 minutes, and that's an awesome video in itself. So it doesn't have to be like a perfectly produced YouTube video and stuff. Just as long as you're providing regular content, videos, pictures, polls for your audiences, sales, things like that. I think those are super important for a Patreon, at least once a week
Yeah.
for your patrons there. Number two is an active community. When I was in Justin's Patreon, and I've heard this since leaving as well, his Discord community isn't very active. And you'd think with a guy like Justin, he'd have a huge active community. But when I was there and with other people saying now, it's not. Will's huge active community. If you see my phone buzzing, it's going to bring up notifications from Will's Discord. So having an active community, I think, is a really important part of Patreon. Number three, have animals consistent with your collection. Like I mentioned with Blue Line Morphs, a lot of pied stuff. I'm not big into pied. And Will's has Puzzle and Monsoon, which I'm big on. I know Leviathan has Sunset, and I haven't gotten into Sunset yet, but I've definitely have looked into it and have a few animals saved on my Morph Market for that. But be sure that the Patreon has animals that are consistent with your collection. Someone mentioned in the chat earlier how they were part of the Royal Constrictor Designs and they won a snake, which wasn't like consistent with their collection. So it's important to have have snakes that are consistent with your collection as well. And finally, discounts on animals. Um, at least a portion of your money should go towards animals. Some Patreons, 100% of that goes into it. I believe Leviathan has 100%, Will has 100%, Miguel has 100%, Justin has 0%. And I would like to have my Patreon have at least some of my money goes towards some of the animals. I
Yeah.
think that's all I wrote for that. Any thoughts on this right here? What do you look for when going?
No, that's a good overview and description of what the topic of the day is. And I think Patreon's an interesting thing. You got all sorts of ways that people are putting content online and sharing and for a fee. Like there's people, men and women, they have like OnlyFans or they have, like there's a million different ways to support people, like Twitch streamers, and you're donating or like people have found all sorts of new ways to generate money from content. And in this hobby with reptile related Patreons, if you want to learn more about reptiles and fast forward time, just like spending a lot of time in a library when you're in college, like you can absorb a lot and potentially minimize like risks and mistakes by brainstorming with people that ideally have more experience with you, but not necessarily, because like some people are just really good at researching, they're really good at learning and on the fast track and surrounding not themselves with knowledgeable people and have a lot to share and to offer. This whole new world of technology that we're in and social media, like everything is so advanced, where back in the day I had to read a Reptiles magazine and I had to wait each month for it to come out. I had to go buy all the books that I could at all the best, like biggest reptile stores. And I had to, network and bump shoulders with like people at shows. I had to go to Herp Society meetings, which still take place in different communities throughout the country, different symposiums and different shows that you can go to gain knowledge and experience. um, and a Patreon is a little bit, I feel, or should be like a little bit of an entry into that to help. Like you should be able to learn from it. You should be able to make friends in it, in my opinion. And it should offer you something to help you grow and experience things better in this hobby. That's what I would look for a Patreon, if I and if like recommending it to people. And I think that most of them have great value. I can't speak on all of them, but like you said, like you don't the person that runs a Patreon doesn't necessarily have to be the biggest name, most expensive, um, you know, most experienced person in sections of the hobby. They just need to be, in my opinion, a good person, a helpful person, someone who networks themselves, and so they have things to offer you in all sorts of different ways. And as long as they're helping you and you're enjoying it, then then it's worth a try, you know, for sure. We're all trying to like pretty much learn in this hobby, and everyone enjoys camaraderie and making friends, right? Not everyone's super outgoing, but like, you know, uh, I would hope that that's what people find in the Patreon if they stick around. And I recommend them. I recommend them, and I like the one that I'm in, and yeah. We'll see. More of them will come out, and maybe I'll join another one day. But right now, I'm happy with the involvement in the one that I'm in.
Yeah, Adam's awesome, and it's definitely in the running for my considerations. Although Leviathan is putting a really good pitch in the chat here. Okay, for our final one here, Patreons to look out for. I thought I'd give a shout out to these ones. These are the ones that I've been considering, and Adam's pretty good up there too. But Leviathan, they just started their Patreon. In fact, let's pull up their Patreon real quick. What I think is pretty cool is that it shows up here how many members they have and how much they're making a month. Man, you guys are raking in the bucks here for just the first couple of weeks here, Leviathan. Good job on that. So here's their memberships. You have a $5, and I've read through all of these. You guys could check it out. 25, 50, and 100. Now I'm in the market for a 25, so let's take a look at his 25, their $25 tier. All monthly premiums for this tier can use the credit, the discount the price of any snake. So that's one of the things I'm looking for. Free swag, access to uncut interviews with various leaders. That's really cool right there. Invitation to monthly Zoom live. I like all of those, as well as the previous tier as well. Let's take a look at some of the content that they posted, which we won't be able to see, but we could kind of read what it's about. So crew tier monthly calls. This is interesting. I want to hear their sound bites here because that definitely interests me. And we just saw that today. I believe they posted the, what was it, red stripe?
Yeah, red stripe, yellow belly, sunset, possible leopard.
Yeah, I
Its
think
pattern
that's
looks
definitely leopard.
it looks leopardy to me, but the snake is surprisingly not that dark. So I think that that's why he's questioning it, because like expected it to be a little bit darker with leopard in it. But beautiful snake, pretty cool to see them get involved with a project, fall in love with it, focus on it, talk about it, acquire more of it, and start to create cool things. That's what you want to do in this hobby. They're having fun. They have some other projects too that they enjoy and that they have fun with. And without really having a sneak peek into their Patreon, you could easily ascertain that it's got to be pretty good because the content that they put on YouTube is very polished and fun and informative. And it's ironic because last year Stephen had discussed starting a Patreon and the potential of that and how he felt that they weren't ready to do a Patreon. And obviously, they've put a lot of energy and a lot of thought into starting this, and it's, I imagine, going pretty well so far, as we can see in certain ways with how many members there's rushing on to their content. Like, but he obviously changed his mind and saw lots of other people starting Patreons and thought, you know what, maybe we don't have to be in this 10 years to like offer something of value to people that are participating in it. And I'm glad that they made that decision. And I'm not ready to join it right now, but I bet that if I did, I'd make friends and have a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm really liking the amount of content that they've just put out in the month that they've started this. It's incredible. So definitely something I will take into consideration and kind of leaning towards right now. Let's take a
Hmm.
look at another Patreon that I'm considering, and that is Mutation Creation. I know that you
Hmm.
said that this wasn't a Patreon that interested you, but man, look at how much money Billy is making a month for the Mutation Creation crew just on his Patreon. That's over $8,000. That's
Yeah, I
crazy.
mean, hanging out and talking with Billy interests me very much. There's probably few people that I find as interesting in the hobby, but I looked at it at one point, and just like Justin Kabilka's Patreon for Canova, like I found them to be a bit expensive, and it just priced me out. And some of the things that you've pointed out, some of your experiences could be further making me feel that way. But Billy, as someone who's been involved in the hobby and put out content, I have a ton of respect for. And I've spoken with Austin in person, and I really like what they're doing as far as like achieving their goals and thinking outside the box and like really running a good, profitable business. You know, he went through a divorce and he stuck with the hobby. He's had ups and downs. He's not afraid to share those things with people. And I really like him a lot. I just am not in a position to join his Patreon to the level of where I would get the most out of it. I feel.
Yeah, so I'm just looking through this. He does have a lot of content, and mutation creation are just high quality all around. So it's definitely something that I will put under consideration. Now, here's another one. This is not a Patreon, but it's very similar, and that is Holdback Rack. They do have memberships for their YouTube channel, and looks like the pricing is very similar to what a Patreon would be. You have a
Yeah, it's
$3.
a good value. Somebody gifted me a membership, and I didn't take full advantage of knowing when those videos and like things were available, and I would see that they would be posted after. But I really like Jessica a lot, and I know you do as well. And I would, if I joined and supported more another content creator and another person in the hobby that I appreciate, it probably would lean towards her. Yeah, I like what she's doing, and I just I love her shows.
Yeah,
And
apparently
but what's that?
they have members only live streams, which would definitely
Hmm.
interest. And go ahead. What
Yeah.
were you going to say?
Oh, well, yeah, no, I'm sorry, but I was gonna say that my phone is close to dying. So
Okay.
if I cut off here, we keep going. That's why I didn't charge it to 100%. I don't have a separate power source, and this mic and the StreamYard stream drains my phone like a vampire. And I'm surprised that it's my fault for not being at 100%. But usually you want our videos to stick right to an hour, so like
Yeah,
it's gonna work out. But I think that this was a good topic, and I think that this could inspire some people to join Patreons. And I think that they should think it out and take their time and research it a little bit and choose wisely, so that they have a better chance of staying in that one and being invested in and making friends and learning as much as they can.
definitely. And just one more tip before we leave here on joining a Patreon. Wait till the start of the new month, because if you join now, you only have a couple of days access, and they're going to charge you again at the start of the month. So wait till the first to join a Patreon. Just saving you like $15-$20 here. But
Mm.
yeah, definitely great show again, Jason.
Hmm.
And it's helped me narrow down my decisions on the next Patreon. I do want to join on April 1st here. Is it
Show
April?
number 10, folks. Show number 10. We're double digits. What? It's
Yeah,
all
thanks.
about that grind. Just keep going.
Thanks again, audience. Jason, you're awesome. Before your phone dies out, goodbye, everyone. Have a great week. Watch my video on
I have a couple of yours to catch up on. I'm gonna check them out tonight. And and
Okay.
and as always, thank you everyone for joining and live and for watching on the replay. And I wish everybody has a successful week with their reptiles and that everything goes well and is healthy. And I hope that everyone out there in reptile land is healthy and happy. We'll see you next week.
Bye, guys.